In Japanese, there's actually always some reasons why, for example, Islamic hospital reject Christians patients, ladies and gentlemen, because that's exactly the value that they're trying to bring. For example, the medical practices that they're trying to practice in that, to practice in that hospital, as that's using Islamic values in the very first place, ladies and gentlemen. So that's exactly the reason they never, for example, accept Christians to come to the hospital in the very first place, because if they have to accept the Christians, maybe it's not going to be adjustable for the Christians itself, because the Christian might be rejecting the Islamic practices that they are actually practicing in the hospital in the very first place, ladies and gentlemen. So there's always a reason why these, schools, for example, why this hospital reject the Christianity, because Islamic value itself is the added value of their hospital, ladies and gentlemen. It's the added value of the public-private services they're trying to provide to the people, ladies and gentlemen. Then their proposal is actually trying to dictate the added value itself. Their proposal is trying to make all hospitals the same, when maybe certain hospitals prefer to practice to use Islamic practices in order to give the services for the people, ladies and gentlemen. And we actually question what is actually so problematic with that, because in the very first place, if these Christians, for example, are rejected by the Islamic hospitals, they still have another option, ladies and gentlemen. They can go, for example, to a special hospital for Christianity. They can also go to public, hospital that the government provides, ladies and gentlemen. So we don't understand that there's an urgency in this debate. So we also think that the government side of the house is very wrong in the first place, because the idea that they're trying to champion in this debate is the idea of tolerance, right? First of all, they never prove to you why, just because a patient comes to Islamic hospital, then suddenly tolerance will happen in the society in the very first place. Second of all, ladies and gentlemen, we also think that they're exactly the one that doesn't respect tolerance itself. They're exactly the one that doesn't tolerate the Islamic hospital, ladies and gentlemen. Why so, ladies and gentlemen? Because by doing so, it's just the same that they are forcing these hospitals to sacrifice their value for the sake of getting grants, ladies and gentlemen. Even as Satria said in the very first place, the grant is very essential. It's very important for this hospital, ladies and gentlemen. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the end, what they're trying to do is that in order to get that important grant, these people have to sacrifice their value first, ladies and gentlemen. That's not the idea of tolerance. That's the idea of forcing, trying to dictate the religious value that these people have, ladies and gentlemen. So we don't understand what they're trying to say. This is tolerance. This is not tolerance. This is accidentally backlashing the idea of tolerance in the very first place, ladies and gentlemen. We also question them. They're trying to say that no people getting a job in the very first place. Why no people getting a job? Because they are rejected by certain religious values or religious company. This is also questionable. They never prove to you how significant this religious company is, how many religious companies in Indonesia, for example, for certain communities. That when these companies are rejecting that many people are laid off, for example, that's the first thing. They never see us prove the significance of these companies in the very first place. Second of all, ladies and gentlemen, we think that there's no true assumption in the very first place, because anti-discrimination regulation has actually been applied in the United States for so long, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe for these people who are being rejected, it's not because they don't have the same religion with the companies, but simply because they don't have the merit base, ladies and gentlemen. We think that there's something that they never prove to you. Why, when these people are rejected, then suddenly they can make a sudden conclusion that these people are rejected simply because their religious beliefs are not actually the same with the religious belief that the company try to uphold, ladies and gentlemen. So we actually question, and we think that it's actually very okay if, for example, certain companies only want to accept Muslim, for example. Why? Because this company also have certain value that they need to uphold, ladies and gentlemen. What is the value? Islamic value itself. For example, for certain companies, maybe they would like to make, salat bersama every day, for example, or they're trying to, pray in Islamic way every day, ladies and gentlemen. That's why they need the employee to also have the same religion in order to ensure those practices are going well, ladies and gentlemen. But what they're trying to do is that they're trying to make these companies trapped in a situation when they do not have the money anymore because they cannot have the grant. Even if they have the grant, they have to sacrifice their value. That's not government, because as a government, you have to give something. You have to give them without any conditional reasons, without any reason to discriminate people and force people to even lose their own values in the very first place, ladies and gentlemen. So we say the idea of tolerance is not going to be achieved. Even tolerance is something that they're trying to backlash in this debate, ladies and gentlemen. Now moving on to my case on how this is a form of active discrimination between religious organizations and other organizations, ladies and gentlemen. As we all know, ladies and gentlemen, right now, the grants and the money coming from government is not only given to religious organizations. This is also given, for example, to NGO, for example, to feminist movement, ladies and gentlemen. But under the proposal, what's going to happen? Under the proposal, when these religious organizations want to get the grant, they have to comply to that, right? They have to sacrifice their values in order to get the grants in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. For example, for this Islamic hospital, they have to, accept these Christians in order to get a grant. Maybe because maybe that's actually against their value. But see, that proposal is discrimination. Why? Because in other organizations, for example, feminist movement, because in the movement itself, they have a different value. For example, liberal feminist movement and conservative family movement, ladies and gentlemen. But for that reason, the government still gives the grants without even asking these people to sacrifice their value in the very first place, ladies and gentlemen. We think that is a very active discrimination. Because in their proposal, for example, for religious institutions, every time they would like to get the grants, they have to sacrifice their own value. But for feminist movement, like liberal movement, every time they want the grant, they don't have to sacrifice their values. That's discrimination. And we think that organizations is something that the government have to uphold, especially in democratic countries, ladies and gentlemen. Because democratic countries, organization, religion, or feminist movement are both the reflection of society's mindset, the reflection of society's progress in the very first place, ladies and gentlemen. And even in democratic country, those organizations are really important for society to share their opinions, to define their identity as individual, ladies and gentlemen. So we see what I have proven to you in this debate. I have proven to you that A, they are backlashing the idea of tolerance because they are trying to, make a tolerance by being intolerant to these religious institutions. That's the first thing. Second thing is they want to sacrifice, religious value for the sake of economic benefit, when the economic benefit itself is something that government is responsible for, not this religious institution is responsible for in the first place. And I have proven to you that their proposal is exactly creating active discrimination between religious organizations and other organizations. So that's why we believe there is no way to oppose this motion. Thank you.